in this double daily, and I might actually do 4 in a row for some reason or even more. Holy crap, I would do 6 in the same day. Is I'm going to talk about the cartoon series, if not actual legitimate claymation series. Good Evil equal sign Chronicles, or just Good Evil in general, or Good Evil Zero if that matter, if I do. But Good Evil was a cartoon or claymation franchise that I created back all the way in maybe the late 2000s to early 2010s. Most likely the early 2010s. I said it was one of those kind of more legitimate as to what it was actually about or when it started. Um, this was a series where I combined a legitimate, understandable amount of my creativities and managed to use my imagination in a legitimate way again, understandably again. There's a lot of deep stuff to this stuff, like the philosophy behind why I even say it like that. And you guys may already know why I think like that because of how I have to trust creativity, and then other really unfortunate mysteries. How deep that gets if I make it look that way even, but uh, with using an understandable amount of creativity and imagination to make a show where it combines different kinds of ideas, and it even gets even deeper than that. With Good Evil, it was like, so there were, in the legitimate sense, there were aliens, religious factors like the medieval times with the devil and all that, clockworks, the darkless creatures, the dark black creatures, dark glass creatures. There was suggestively a way for them to have the scantless artificial intelligence aliens, if even possible by then. Otherwise, that would have been an anonymous story, which was another series. But and having all those creative things in the meantime, and this was the idea that I think happens to be the case until now was that Good Evil was a Matrix world where, in a fable sense, all these people and these creatures and robots, they were in a world that was fake and known as the alternation, or there's a character called Ando in this show, the clockwork creator and crap theoretic, or I just raised him, but I'll talk about that later, I guess, with Good Evil Zero. But that these characters came into a fable-like world of a matrix that was either known as the alternation or incubation. And most likely it was the alternation, but incubation is escaping the alternation. So like this world was known as one of the existing dimensions, and it was very barren in at least the Earth-like world or the medieval world that was there. Like there was at least one planet in that realm, but and the idea was that even further down the storyline, I kept writing into this, but like at first, Crab was just someone who happened. Crab the Clockwork was just a character, a clockwork character that was he had those gears for eyes, and he wasn't he was a blonde featured, like his he had a bigger claw on one one than the other one. That he looks a lot like a character from Robotomy. Like he actually looks like one of those characters. The Dead Card Network show. That actually drove me crazy. There's a thing like crop claiming or like copyright claiming. I don't know. The meme I made up for that was like I making an idea, and then a week or two later it gets stolen by some other else in a legitimate sense. It'll be, oh man, I didn't already make it first, you know, but I technically did. But it's a so when Crab came into that world, he was supposed to just be from that same world, but then it came written later down that he actually was created by either End or the Clockwork or A Siege or someone else or some kind of A Siege the Human Sage or whatever, or from his own dimension and universe or whatever, or that the Caploid creatures from their own OG state created him, or even something else entirely different created Crab. And so the idea was that Crab had his own destiny. Andor had deeper destinies, but Crab could still choose his own destiny. Whatever else. Crab, as a cartooning example, he resembles the idea of imperfection and potential, I think. It's like, when you think of a clockwork, you think of something that's downgraded for the sense of the technology, like even, for example, the ones we have now, or even cyberpunk technology or futuristic technology. You don't think of clocks and gears and mechanical instruments being better than what we have now in the information age. I still want to debunk that so bad. I at least have a better chance of doing this self-justice warrior. Dude, this Good Evil show was about to do that, especially in Good Evil Zero, was to have these deeper philosophies and ideas about seeing the world differently. But even particularly with Good Evil, there was still a little bit of that. But with Crab, it was like he's literally called Crab as if he was actually like a sea crab or something, like that big claw. But more so, not just being imperfect, but for being like someone that that had the potential to be who he wanted, even if it wasn't going to be deep. And so, but his imperfections could certainly get him there. And so Crab is a very good cartooning example. He's a character that has that cartooning element of being abstract and poetic and creative, but he's also still very deep and real, very much real in the sense of what we have in the actual world. And I don't mean to get schizophrenic about that. I don't want to be occult magic about that. Oh my gosh, relating to the first few videos on this channel. Back in the Alakosman days. That was still, since even just not even a month ago. That's why I changed the name. But, that's my real name. But, that was Crab the Clockwork. So when he crash lands from the ship into the earth in the replay series from Incredibots, he's supposed to like find some kind of, and this happens at the same time as many other scenes of the series, like multiple. It's like multitasking between different clips of other characters, and so he crash lands into the Middle Earth lower days or whatever of that world. The aliens from a future dimension or even same Matrix world try to do experiments on the Earth, so they send UFOs over there to do the experiments inside the buildings, and then Dog and Skull get separated because of the explosion that the aliens make in the middle of the Earth by sending a phantom bomb or something like that. Lloyd and Jack leave Hell to find out what's going on or something, and why Satan's gone or something, and then Austin was adventuring. He was another Doggos, other than Dog and Scar. He was another Doggos, and he was adventuring. He becomes a vampire after finding a treasure chest in the middle of the Sea of Darkness. And then finally, Fork and Cravel, the clockworks from the actual clock tower, which has a glass piece missing from the tower that is actually inside another character's eye. It's actually another Doggos has the clock tower glass in his eye. I think that was another Doggos. It was one of the older Doggoses. And he has one of his eyes is the clock tower's glass piece. And it gives him a certain power or whatever. I don't know. It was just either significant or given power or whatever. And then, yeah. So, it most aspects contains all these characters' frames and all that. So, it goes back to the Crab actually, like, trying to find a mechanic. He gets hit by a Scottish king or some crap. Scottish dictator king into a well. How creative does that get? I don't know. there was this series goes haywire. The series never expects to get to the point of being so philosophical that it even starts to undermine the idea of good versus evil, which it eventually tries to do, and that's why I got pet peeves when my brothers tried to understand what was evil or what the good versus evil element was actually about when it was about to get much deeper than that, and then it eventually got to the point where it was like, go Good Evil Zero, the prequel. How about that? How about we, instead of not so much all the unfortunate things I went through with the supposed advertising I did back in the years of the show, of actually being too obnoxious about it, but also still being creative about it somehow, and not even trusting creativity even now, unfortunately. But then where Good Evil gets even much deeper, where it's actually where it's even not deep at all for some people, but it's even deeper than that. I'm unbeknownst, but still knowingly to me about myself. Does that make sense? But because it does get so deep, Good Evil gets so deep that it actually becomes this thing where good versus evil is the debacle. Is like, oh, good and evil don't exist or something. That's just an example. It's like good and evil don't exist or something, and then it's like, okay, this prequel, Good Evil Zero, with these characters Andor, Zizzle, and Lodros, and Asage or Kashmir or some shit. See, that almost sounds like my last name, but there was a reason why. It was supposed to be random creativity, but it sounds like my last name, so whatever, Cashman. But I wrote solo chapters for the series, and Good Evil at least, and even I think a little bit for Good Evil Zero, and then I did at least 8 episodes or less of this replay series Machinima for Incredibots and then I had other references of the show throughout the years, even like the pop I made for the disco version of Crab the Clockwork that I made in 2019, I think it was, and then but this runs all the way deep into 2010, 2011, 2009, etc., and then later years, I guess. But, definitely originated since the Incredibots years. I used Incredibots 2 as a good example of how it started, but, But with... So, yeah, Doggos was the enthusiastic time and emotion character, whatever. Because he was the idea was that Scar and Ozma were supposed to be his Doggos companions as per the bones. There's a lot of inspiration that goes into the show, like Locke's quest and Locke's quest inspired Crab the Clockwork. I think Zombies versus Aliens, and Bones, the medieval series from the comic creator guy, was inspired the Douglases, including Doug Scar and Ozen. Some other obvious biblical literature, whatever you can find, or even more cartoony, or even more abstract and deeply philosophical, and even other brilliant and amazing things inspired Lloyd and Jack the demons, and the devil and demons. Even though there's only one devil, but well, most of me demon. But yeah, and then the plant witch Alyssa, and then the sage of the sage of the luminosity wizard or whatever, and then the Scottish Fat King, and the mechanic. There was actually Scornblade, the Scancelus robot, which is inspired by what would eventually be the Scancelus AI creatures, the alien advanced species that would be an anonymous story, with Ace at Sailor, Irb, Cascade, all the other characters, Ivor, whatever, and then what would be known. Unbeknownst to the Algebes universe, with all those main characters that I don't even have to be explaining right now because I can make that another video. This is supposed to be about good evil, dang it. But and then Project Heather and Odd Crosswind. Oh my gosh, Polar Brothers, Parautistic. The other, there it gets deeper. It's literally like there's actually a so-called like Isaac there's another powerful guy. All these other series ideas. Zackman, Logic Challenger. Chicken. I did write a few comics for Chicken, but and then Smiley, Gordon Cheese. Oh my gosh, it's supposed to be about good evil. Get out of here. Okay, but the idea was that this ensemble, Crab, Darg, Lloyd, and Jack, was supposed to, or even Bolster and Score from Project Other, or Team and Edie for that matter. They were supposed to be an ensemble that resembles the idea of logic, emotion, moral, and significance, or something like that. And I revised the idea more over time, like universality, sophistication. There are way more brilliant ideas I had for that much later, many other years later. So, but so that will come along with those things. So so you would find a character like Crab who can even talk, but he still technically can't talk. So maybe I think the funny thing is that Crab comes, like the idea of all his text boxes being in asterisks, but catching every single letter he was saying. That was either a reference to literacy. It's funny if I have that idea of illiteracy, like knowing how to communicate but not knowing how to successfully communicate. So it's like he's not mute, but he can't communicate or something like that. Like he's illiterate in a sense, but he knows what he's saying. So bear in that. It's funny how I know how to talk about something like that in like my very early teens, and before I'm about to become just as illiterate as Crab myself, and then be like, I come from a place where I was 3 years old and I couldn't even say anything. I needed speech therapy for that. For those of you who know my mental spectrum disorder, but then I come to a place where even my early teens, I'd never shut up, and then later on I don't talk at all. Again, I do active listening, and between active listening and talking more often over time, and then I go back to talking more often again. It's back and forth, I guess, even as early as I am, at age 24. But Crab couldn't talk as legitimately, so he had those asterisks for every character he was using for his words and letters and phrases and paragraphs. You had Darg, who could comprehend things two times into the future, because the idea of Douglas was either time or emotion or something like that. But like he was he could have been hedonistic. He technically was hedonistic, as the song implies from the channel, or Crosswind. But Darg had a lot of emotion, and he also had a lot of comprehension of time. If Scar and Ozen were his id and super ego, but if they're not, then they're just characters. They don't have to be summoned because of him, in spite of him. But or ego alone as Darg. But so Darg was someone who was either really very very in tune with his feelings, and also happened to be an example of hedonism in a sense, but also happens to be because Crab was the logic and maybe so much of an imperfection, and like I said, was the creativity cartooning wise. I forget what else Darg was. Like he had those separate arms and all that. Those no arms, no legs, but feet and hands. And that was not supposed to be a rip off of Rayman Adventures, but it really was not even the other game before Rayman. But like, felt really good to do that though. Like a literal black hole. The idea, and I used the Incredibots for that matter, was like you could make a black hole if you broke a sliding joint. And I made a theory. I made a very deep philosophical theory that if you could make something that doesn't rotate, because if you broke a black hole in the Incredibots, it would not be able to rotate. So my theory was like with the Logic Challenger and Darg the Dogless, or the LCB, Logic Challenger Ball, was that if you had something that could rotate, you could have something that would be even better than the supercharged quasar against a black hole. You wouldn't have something that could not only escape a black hole, you could have something that could conquer and defeat one. And that was the deep idea I had about that. It's like, because you hear that from Gumball, they made Amazing Adventures Gumball for Cartoon Network. Like they literally bring that up in like a few seconds. Like, is there anything that can escape a black hole? Not only if it's a supercharged quasar. Ooh, but you know, I'm not a scientist. I'm a neuroscientist. Nah, no, I'm not even that. But you know, no, but it's like a PhD journalism. What? No, shut up. Is but that was dark. And then Lloyd and Jack. So Lloyd had that staff that you could actually like. He could put an indefinite number of Stokes onto the demon or devil or hell Hyam, whatever the hell, Bible, Holy Bible, God, Jesus, whatever. I don't even know why I had this in spite of the aliens in the same time. Like, there was the biggest gamble of creativity ever to have those demons and those aliens at the same time. It was actually really like not supposed to be controversial or religious or spiritual, whatever. It just really wasn't. Not even in spite of occultism later on, but like, but you know, he could put an indefinite amount of Stokes onto his staff, but because of the number of Stokes that were on the staff, it would mean different things, different kinds of abilities and spells. On Lloyd's staff, he was a demon-looking, devil-looking demon. Jack was a demon himself, but he was the purple one. He was understandably a ripoff from those Newground games. I'm sorry, he was. He technically was. There's a lot of ripoffs in later shows as well, but like Sailor from Amon Story, that's an obvious ripoff of Skyward Sword Zelda, like already, you know. But and then what else? I wouldn't say that the Ithiac character from Project Tether is a ripoff from the Ghost of Molly McGee, but or even Beyond Two Souls. But what else am I gonna do with that? Anyway, and Molly McGee hasn't even aired yet, even since the quarantine pandemic. But Jack was the psychic character aside from Sage Lumen, and then he was able to do like a lot of telekinesis. Not telekinesis, not so much Psychonauts abilities, whatever, Psychonauts 2 coming out soon, someday from Double Fine, but, you know, Jack could do a lot of telekinesis, psychic abilities, all that, not so much mind reading, but that would happen in Project Tether, the best. Oops, Incubator Alternators, as apparent at this point, maybe with Good Evil, but Jack was in the psychic. So we had Crab the Clockwork, Dr. Douglas, Lloyd, and Jack the Demons. Lloyd the Devil Demon, and then Jack the Purple Demon. This ensemble would be a really nice fit for the idea of seeing myself and my brothers. It might actually be resembling my brothers, because I had really funny rules. I had 2.5%, like this playlist. I had the 3+1 rule, maybe the triads, the triples that I've used multiple times between both the internet and in real life. So I've done it with my brothers, other people, maybe relationships, maybe other kinds of things, maybe other kinds of friends or business partners, etc. I've done this many times before, maybe, but it's a pretty neat ensemble right there. And then, well, compared to other ensembles and other shows I would make up later. And the idea was that they would eventually come to the conclusion that not only was the good evil world a matrix, because they're going to find out through like the medieval towns they come across, the castles, all the barren wastelands and all that it's too unnatural even for their sakes. And it's like, okay, so this is actually a matrix world, but why are we in this fable? Why are we in this matrix that has humans in it that could even be fake if they are fake? But why are we in this matrix world? What could we do in our time that could matter, even if it's still pointless? And yada 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 yada. So they come across to this point where they maybe create the chromoglyphs or Ithiac the Incubator Ghost as a prank, because he's supposed to be a prank for like the layer worlds and universes and dimensions, and then the chromoglyphs would be like an example of other things too, or connecting to other worlds like algebras and projects together. But they do something. They don't have to prove that good and evil don't exist, even in spite of the aliens or the spaceship behind the aliens that's also coming from the other interdimensional beings or whatever. They don't have to prove that good and evil don't exist or anything else about philosophical depths. But what they would do is that they would make something about their significance and their existence so deep that they do anything that it takes to make it count, even if it's not supposed to matter. And that's a very beautiful thing to explore. Is like they actually go that far to their story and their show. It's like, that's as much as Good Evil was a good way to explore creativity while trusting it. As a scientist, he wannabe, STEM wannabe, but art, animation, cartooning, Cal Arts, Jesus, bring back the Cal Arts, Jesus, but the university, but Good Evil, the red and white font text of that by Halo Predator, yours truly. It was just one of those times in my life where I made a show that, yes, I advertised it too much, unfortunately. Yes, I uh was stuck in my head for the first legitimate show, I guess, since Alien Race and uh other shows I made at the meantime. Hank versus the Club Penguin Killer, or whatever other ideas I had. First creation, the little pixie, some other imaginary friends I had in the meantime while I was growing up as an autistic person. But you know, I Good Evil was nice. It's unfortunate that I came up with the idea around the same time the regular show and Adventure Time came around. When Adventure Time ended, I immediately thought about Good Evil, and I was like, what the heck? If I had started at the same time as them, not even still as a kid, but or as a teenager, but I was still. Side note, I still was very mature as a teenager, so even coming with Good Evil was a mature thing to do. It was a very playful, imaginative thing, creative thing to do, but I was still mature as a teenager and as a preteen. So take that how you will, uh, but so inspiring things like Good Evil, and I lost the notebook to Good Evil for the first 4 chapters in my middle school before graduating from there. Still time to go to my high school graduation for my other school though, just a side note for that. But when I ever get the letter in 5 years, side note again. But Good Evil was really beautiful to make up. I made Good Evil before the addiction came around, and that's how understandably the vector of my life, I guess I keep defining it as, comes around. So before becoming a PMO addict, I do make up Good Evil, and I think algebra comes around when the addiction is already awakening, and then when I'm already well into my addiction, I make Project Tether, and then I'll cross one other series, I guess, or whatever else. And Project Tether gets revamped for the current claymation ideas later on. And this month was supposed to be about a celebration of Good Evil, 10 years or whatever. I'm just about, but Good Evil was a very beautiful thing that established my life, whether it's before I became an addict or even while still trying other ideas in the meantime. Even if Good Evil didn't exist in everyone else's life, if it didn't exist in a legitimate way, at least it was still beautiful for me and it influenced the person I am today. That's all I got for you guys for now. I accept you, Tony. Remember that there's nothing more beautiful than desperation, and that there's nothing more devastating than pretending not to care about Good Evil Chronicles, or Good Evil Zero, or anything else that comes out of that red and white text with the blazing colors and shapes. See you guys later. Incredibots or not, bye, you guys.